Okay, there we go. Good deal. Well, it's so nice to see everybody here this evening, and people feeling in a good mood because of this beautiful weather we're having. That is so great, and it is, even though this schedule, I have to admit, throws me off a little bit where we're adjusting our meeting times, somehow it doesn't seem in the right rhythm. Here we are for our actual first business meeting in August. And so we'll get started. I'm going to officially call this Kalamazoo City Commission meeting to order for Monday, August 12th, 2024. And our first order of business is roll call. Clerk Borling.
Commissioner Cooney. Present. Commissioner Decker. Present. Commissioner Hoffman. Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. May I please have a motion to excuse Commissioner Hoffman from the meeting this evening?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel.
Support.
Supported by almost half the crew up here. I guess we'll call it Vice Mayor Hess. And all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed, nay? All right, thank you so much. The motion passes. Well, we are blessed this evening to have Jeff Port with us from Center Point Church. Jeff will be providing an invocation to help us get started here this evening, and I will ask everyone to stand for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray together. Triune God, we are so grateful for each of these servant leaders on our council who have been appointed by you for such a time as this. As each commissioner borrows your wisdom, we ask that you would give them collectively the unique ability to discern the common good for our community. Stir their imagination and resolve to use their gifts and calling to champion a vision of a city where businesses thrive and every person who wants a job can find a job, a city where educational institutions teach important subjects and model noble values, a city where healthcare is accessible to all, where nonprofits achieve their goals, where mothers and fathers and single parents feel hopeful that the next generation is empowered to realize their God-endowed gifts and calling, a city where no one feels marginalized, where the voiceless are not forgotten, where the incarcerated are treated with respect and dignity, where gun violence is curbed, and where every child is loved and has a home and our neighborhoods are safe. Surely such a grand vision is only possible through the power of an all-powerful yet ridiculously loving God. And it's through his Son, King Jesus, that we pray in his name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you again, Jeff. Appreciate it. We do not have any proclamations this evening, so the next item on our agenda is to adopt the formal agenda. Commissioners, are there any items on G, the consent agenda, that you would like to have to move to H, the regular agenda? Seeing none, move on. Is there anyone here in the chambers that wants to move an item from our consent agenda to the regular agenda? All right, seeing no changes there, we'll go forward as the agenda is proposed. Communications, Manager Ritzma.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Now is the opportunity for public comments for our meeting this evening. You'll have 3 minutes to make public comments on any topic you desire. Please come forward, state your name, whether you live in the city.
Hi, I'm Kay. I want to take you back to 2024 Commissioners Retreat, in which the city administration left out the very specific statistics that show their failures to prioritize the crises in the city of Kalamazoo, like the 2022 retreat. And instead, it was very interesting to see the city administration and the city commissioners mingle and do bonding exercises. Meanwhile, us, the people, grassroots organizations, watch from the sidelines, unable to speak or interact, no power to sway the decision makers. And it's just like that every day. Working class people, Alice communities living under the federal poverty line, powerless to the predatory practices of the real estate corporations taking over the city with the help of people in power, and the city administration facilitating this power to corporate landlords. Like Cheryl Parsons, ecstatic about the so-called landlord toolkit to facilitate landlord real estate corporations from receiving government grants such as HUD's low-income tax credit. Meanwhile, they don't even offer the bare minimum of affordable housing based on the thousands of people in the 0 to 30% AMI waiting on affordable housing, destroying vital natural water basins and mature green spaces for gentrification, exacerbating flooding and accelerating the climate crisis. I digress. These corporate landlords have never worked with low-income households, so they inherently hold anti-poor bias. According to the UN, discrimination is part of the daily experience of people in poverty. It restricts access to employment, education, housing, or social services. It may result in certain social goods or programs not reaching people in poverty, owing to discriminatory treatment by officials, employers, landlords, or to the fear of maltreatment. People in poverty are disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system, as judges may be biased against them or base their sentencing on anti-poor stereotypes. In the study conducted jointly by Oxford University, social maltreatment is described as the way in which people in poverty are typically treated within and by the community, oftentimes facing stereotypes, blame, and stigma. The process of othering is commonplace, where people in poverty are thought to be different and socially inferior. Social maltreatment in turn feeds institutional maltreatment or abuse, defined as a common failure of public and private institutions to respond appropriately to the circumstances, needs, and aspirations of people in poverty. It causes or perpetuates systemic disadvantages, undermines human dignity, or adversely affects the equal enjoyment of their rights and freedoms. As the Alice report confirms, there is now ample research demonstrating that the wealthiest groups of the population exercise a disproportionate influence on the political system, and that this phenomenon has become worse in the growth of inequalities over the past 40 years. A study covering 136 countries for the periods of 1981 to 2011 showed that as income inequality increases, rich people enjoy greater political power and respect for civil liberties than poor people do. This is specifically exacerbated in Kalamazoo by the rich buying the city budget, with the FFE and city administration working with landlords and real estate committees. For example, Rebecca came from the real estate committee. I haven't seen her work with the Alice committee or addressing her own bias.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Shona Espinoza, and I'm a resident of Kalamazoo. It's sad that we have to continue to keep coming up here because there's nothing getting done in the city. Where are the pods? Where's the help? Why are these landlords not being held responsible or accountable for the harm that they continue to cause? Why aren't you guys being held accountable for the harm that you continue to cause or ignore what's really going on in the city? Our youth, our babies are the ones that are at harm. These landlords have way too much power in the city. And for us to have a mayor that is a landlord or have many friends to be a landlord and aren't holding them accountable, that's a problem. That should not be a problem in Kalamazoo. Kalamazoo have an extreme housing crisis. When is something going to be done? I'm tired of hearing the talk, yes, I'm going to do this or do that. No, the time is now. We demand change now. There are many seats that's going to be coming up for election in the next couple of years that I believe that y'all should be voted out of because y'all not doing your job. There's a lot of privilege that is on this board in this community to think that there's not marginalized people in this community, that people that don't need help and we aren't receiving help. Y'all need to do better. There's so many white men on this board that think they're above us and don't have to do what's needed. Please hold your counterparts accountable because many of y'all aren't doing your job. You aren't helping. You're not coming out here. You're not seeing what's going on. And if you are, you don't care. Our children are the ones that are having to deal with when their parents aren't okay and aren't receiving the help. Housing is an extreme issue that's going on in Kalamazoo, and you guys see it and know it. When are you going to go to Lansing or DC and let them tell them that Kalamazoo has a housing crisis that is extremely horrible for your residents? Nobody should be out on the streets sleeping. It's about to be wintertime. Where are the pods? Where's the help? Where's the money? Where are you doing your job? We should not have to come up here and time again. I'm tired of coming up here, but our community matters to me more than it does you. Hold each other accountable for what you're not doing or what they're not doing. Come out here and be with the orgs that are out here actually doing the work almost every single day and see what their housing solutions are or what they're doing. It's time to grow up and do your job and not sit and reap the wealth or whatever y'all reeking because it's not impressive. Y'all actually look sad. This community needs help, and I'm demanding y'all to stand up and do what's right.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Adrienne Zaya. I'm the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy for YWCA of Kalamazoo. I'm here today with a quick thank you for your continued support of our programs and services. At YWCA Kalamazoo, our mission is to eliminate racism and empower women, and we seek to raise up the voices of those most marginalized in our community. Our organization provides high-quality, trauma-informed, and comprehensive programs for many across the city of Kalamazoo. Every day, individuals and families rely on our dedicated staff to deliver holistic and comprehensive services that are supportive of their needs, including crisis advocacy, emergency housing, and legal services. Yet to ensure that they can expect to receive these services from the YWCA, such programs require stable and robust funding. Unfortunately, the need and demand for our services continue to far exceed the resources available to YWCA Kalamazoo and its clients. However, through the $100,000 fund approved by the City Commission on May 13th of 2024, YWCA Kalamazoo will be able to continue providing critical support to our clients through our gender-based violence initiatives and maintain access to reproductive health care for Kalamazoo residents. YWCA Kalamazoo is grateful for the support of the City of Kalamazoo in this body, as it allows our staff and leaders to continue to serve others while working to achieve our mission of eliminating racism and empowering women. Your support in allocating these funds will impact every part of our clients' lives. We look forward to finalizing appropriate documentation with you and working with you all in the future to further ensure Kalamazoo is a thriving community for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Tina. I'm here as I always am about the flooding. We heard you're going to put a little reservoir over on Reed Street. That's not going to fix the issues with your storm drains and your storm sewers and your pipes underneath the streets that are from 1960, probably even earlier. They're crumbling. They're not working. They're not doing their job. We've flooded 3 times this year. And yet you're still trying to take that last little green space away so Lyft can build. But why? We're in a climate change. We're flooding more and more. Your storm drains in the streets are flooding more and more streets out every time it rains. 2 inches of rain? Come on. We shouldn't flood with 2 inches of rain. 3 times in 1 year? And now you're still trying to take away natural spaces to build? Kalamazoo is a mess. And you guys have made it that way. The streets are horrible. Can nobody afford to live? Apartments, downtown Rose Street apartments, $1,200 to $1,400 for a studio apartment? Come on. This is ridiculous. I work 2 jobs. That's a lot for me. I wouldn't want to live downtown anyway, because your streets are just, you've made it to where nobody wants to come downtown because the streets are horrible. All over Kalamazoo. You've got construction everywhere. You've got businesses closing down right and left. That's nothing to be proud of. People are struggling to make it. And the more you flood us out, the more we have to struggle. I work 2 jobs. I shouldn't have to come to this meeting every first Monday of the month, every third Monday of the month, and preach this to the same choir, the same thing, and nothing gets done. No responses, no answer to my question. If you're in a chosen neighborhood, you will get an answer. But if you're in a poor neighborhood, you get no answer, nothing. You just have to struggle day by day. So your furnace goes out when you flood. You have to replace it. Your water heater goes out when you flood. You have to replace it. When the sewage comes up, and people don't realize, when we flood, your storm drains flood out the streets. And then it backs up the sewers into the groundwater, which is very high. And the more you build in my neighborhood, the more you make the groundwater higher and higher. The more you flood us out more and more. It's time to start caring about the real residents of Kalamazoo, not the rich, not the billionaires who have bought the city of Kalamazoo out. It's time to care about the people. I mean, come on, guys. You sit up here every day. I bring the same thing up every single day for the past 7 years, and I still haven't gotten anything fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, and City. My name is Tony Kennedy. I frequent the City of Kalamazoo. I do have several meetings that I have to go to, so I thought I would go ahead and share my thoughts about the parking, as well as all of you know my feeling on the parking. I went ahead and took a look at what you put forth today. I also heard some of us that talked today and a few days ago, and I wanted to share with you that I will be in agreement with what it is. Not that you need me to agree, because apparently all of you are going to do what you want to do anyway, but I wanted to let you know that I am in agreement of what you are sharing or what you put forth in the packet. The only things that I did not see was, and I was hoping that you would consider maybe a review in a year, just to see how that's going and assess. I talked to Christina. She said, well, we already do that, and that's not something that needs to come up to the commission. But I believe that because we are in so many different opposite sides of the fence, why don't we put it that way, that it wouldn't hurt to have a review and know how things are doing. I'd also like to make sure that we consider handicap parking. I'm somebody who uses that periodically, and I know plenty of people that also use handicap parking spaces. So even though that might be a different phase coming up in the future, since you are evaluating currently what you're doing as far as your increases, et cetera, I would like to make sure that there is additional handicap parking spaces. And then something that Commissioner Pradel and I just talked about that has to do with the meetings. So I am somebody that does frequent meetings. I come to the city meeting, or I go to the county meeting, and I definitely go to the township meetings. And I would like to be sure that those parking spaces for the community are available and not have any kind of, are exempt from being charged. So I wanted to appreciate your having heard me last meeting. I'm still a little salty, but I'm good today. And I'm sorry I can't stay for to hear what you decide. But I'm hoping that you'll look at those three requests that I have to somehow incorporate that in what you're trying to do if you haven't done that already. Thank you, and I want you all to
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Chase Platty. I live in the city of Kalamazoo. I just wanted to say that we would like to see public comment call-ins be able to come back, because it is really not accessible for people who are working and have kids to be able to come here every meeting and speak and say the things they want to say to the city commission. I would also like to say that in addition to having call-ins to the meeting, there is an extreme housing crisis in Kalamazoo, extreme housing crisis. People cannot afford to rent on a single income. It's not even affordable. And that is why we're seeing so many homeless outside with nowhere to sleep, just being priced out of housing, being priced out of a place to live. And the city, it needs to be doing way more. You guys need to be doing water fountains so people can have water, can have a place to go to the bathroom, can have a public bathroom that's open and accessible to people. So they're not wondering, where am I going to sit today? Where am I going to go to the bathroom today? People are just trying to survive. Lots and lots and lots of Kalamazoo citizens are just trying to survive day to day. And there's lots of things this commission can do to support those people and to help those people. And that needs to be our priority, because everything else you guys focus on can be secondary to the survival of the citizens that are counting on you to help and to be there to support them. And it's embarrassing that you're letting nonprofits do the work that this city should be doing to support people on the streets. Nonprofits will always be there to help, but there's only so much they can do. It needs to be solutions like affordable houses, like the pods. There needs to be somewhere for people to sleep in the winter, somewhere for people to stay. The YWCA is full. The gospel mission is full. What else is there? There's no emergency shelters. There's no shelters for families. There's mothers with babies living out on the streets, babies and toddlers, and their young kids who can't even go to school, can't go to KPS school. There are thousands of homeless KPS students. How are they going to go to school if they don't have a place to sleep at night, to get on the bus, to go to school, to get an education? You guys need to focus on the solutions and the changes you guys can be making, and what you can do, not what you can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello, greetings, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Commissioners. My name is Kevin Crittenden, and I'm here, and I'm the Associate Director of the Chamber here. The Southwest Michigan First Chamber of Commerce, in conjunction with a number of stakeholders and businesses in downtown, express our full and urgent support for the implementation of each of the proposed downtown parking plan updates. This endorsement is built on years of discussions with small businesses, property owners, and others who recognize that these changes are not only critical, but now long overdue. The challenges associated with our current downtown parking have been well documented in various studies performed right here in our downtown dating back to the 1980s, including the 2009 Downtown Comprehensive Plan and the 2017 Gibbs Planning Group study. The Gibbs Planning Group was retained by the City of Kalamazoo to conduct an independent retail market analysis for its downtown central business district. Two findings were relevant to this discussion. First, expand on street parking in the downtown, especially in or near the mall. Secondly, and most relevant, is install parking meters along all commercial streets and offer 2 hours of free parking in public garages. The consistent findings in our downtown, not to mention the myriad of other towns and cities who have performed similar studies, all underscore the harm that free on-street parking in premium high-demand areas does to the surrounding businesses. Changes like these we are recommending would help contribute over $50+ million annually to the downtown businesses we all want to support. One of the most pressing issues this would also address is the current misuse of on-street parking. These prime spots are often occupied for long hours by residents, visitors, commercial users, and even employees of downtown businesses arriving before customers and remaining for their entire shifts. Make no mistake, while these are important people to the fabric to our downtown, this practice prevents untold numbers of potential customers from accessing these spaces and leaves those shoppers and diners out to other communities. In fact, studies show that this contributes to hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue annually per space, dollars that could remain right here in our community, supporting families and building community. The vast majority of businesses we talk to recognize the challenges of free premium spaces and are ready for you to act to address it once and for all. Help us move towards best practices as a community and finally get unstuck from the history of how things have always been. There will always be those who don't have all the data. We do, and we've paid experts to guide us. Let's leverage that expertise to create a more vibrant and successful downtown area. Thank you for your consideration and attention to this matter. We look forward to your approval on these components.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I stand before you today to discuss an important proposal that affects not just our wallets, but the very fabric of our community. The proposal in question is about a modest increase in the ramp parking fees. At first glance, an increase in price might seem like a step in the wrong direction, but let me explain why this proposal is actually crucial for maintaining the affordability and accessibility of our beloved downtown Kalamazoo. Our downtown is a vibrant hub for families, offering countless free events and activities that draw people from all over. Imagine a sunny afternoon spent enjoying the serene beauty of Bronson Park, watching your children laugh and play at the Children's Playscape, or immersing yourself in the wonders of the Kalamazoo Valley Museum. Our downtown is rich with experiences like the Holiday Parade, the Holiday Lighting Ceremony, and Santa's Workshop, all of which bring joy to families and strengthen our sense of community. Events like the St. Patrick's Day Parade, Doodah Parade, Beats on Baits, Workout Wednesdays, and the many In the Zoo events add to the cultural tapestry that makes Kalamazoo such a special place to live. These events are often free to attend, making them accessible to all families regardless of income. But that accessibility is threatened if we do not pass the proposed increase in ramp parking fees. Currently, the first 90 minutes of parking in our ramps is free, with a rate of $1.75 per hour thereafter, capped at $10 for the day. The proposed change would raise the rate slightly to $2 per hour, but the first 90 minutes would remain free. The importance of this proposal lies in its ability to preserve that crucial free 90 minutes. If we do not pass this ordinance, we risk losing that benefit. Without it, families will have to pay more, $5 for just 2.5 hours of parking. However, if the proposal is passed, the cost for 2.5 hours will be just $2, making it significantly more affordable for families to attend these beloved events. Consider what this means for our community. If parking becomes too expensive, families may be forced to limit their visits downtown. They may choose not to attend the holiday parade, skip out on In the Zoo events, or forgo a fun afternoon at the Kalamazoo Public Library. These are not just events. They are the moments that create memories and bring us closer together as a community. We have a responsibility to keep our downtown accessible to everyone. By passing this proposal, we ensure that families can continue to enjoy the free events and activities that make Kalamazoo such a wonderful place to live. I urge you to support this proposal, not as a price increase, but as an investment in the future of our community. Let's keep our downtown vibrant, welcoming, and accessible for all. Thank you. And I'm Becky from Pop City Popcorn. I forgot to introduce myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, next, please.
Hi, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Heather Holmer, resident and owner of Rocket Biz, co-owner, sorry, Tom. I'm here today to add my support for the parking plan proposed at the last meeting. I watched the discussion remotely and was once again frustrated by the committee's sluggish response. The claim that there was a lot of information is not a valid reason to delay a plan that benefits the community. Similarly, constructions about bad timing due to endless construction and negative public opinion are simply short-sighted. I urge you to focus on what is best for Kalamazoo rather than succumbing to public bullying by loud naysayers. Business owners and employees in downtown Kalamazoo are committed to the city's success. As a group, we have come together in ways to create events and activate our downtown in ways that the city has not in recent years. We have more at stake and stand to lose more if the committee yields to undue pressure. There are many of us who worry about our long-term sustainability of our businesses and question whether or not this is a lease we want to renew when it comes due. When you hear from a few of us, you can assume that we typically agree on these city-related issues. It would be beneficial to feel supported by this committee in the future so that we don't add yet another frustration to the list of downtown issues that make us question our future. Please pass the parking proposal, as Becky has convincingly argued in favor of. She has been much more patient than I am today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident, and Rank My Vote volunteer. I wasn't planning on talking about Rank My Vote this evening. I did not wear the shirt, but I was looking at the date up there, August 12, 2024, and I thought, well, maybe at the next meeting I should tell people that we're planning on having a big statewide virtual Zoom meeting on Tuesday, August 20th. So I'll talk about that at the next meeting wearing my shirt, but why wait? 1 week from tomorrow, on Tuesday, August 20, at 7 p.m. Eastern, Rank My Vote will be holding a campaign update team from our statewide team in Lansing and Ann Arbor, featuring special guest Katie Fahey, one of the co-founders of Voters Not Politicians. Voters Not Politicians is a group that in 2018 brought you the Citizens Independent Redistricting Commission and followed up 4 years later with the voting reforms that brought us to 9 days of early voting. So if you want to participate in that meeting, please go to our website, rankmyvote.org/events, and scroll down to Tuesday, August 20th, and you need to click a link to register to get that Zoom link. Also, we are still recruiting volunteers for our statewide ballot initiative. That's what I'm currently doing at the farmers market, Bank Street Farmers Market, on Saturday mornings. Next year, mid to late April, we're going to begin collecting 600,000 petition signatures statewide. We'll have 6 months to do it, so we need our volunteers in place before then. Kalamazoo County's proportionate share of that 600,000 signature statewide goal is going to be 15,600 some. That means if we assign to every volunteer a goal of 200 signatures, we're going to need 77 volunteers here in Kalamazoo County. So if you want to help us in any way to get ranked choice voting enacted statewide in Michigan, please go to our website, rankmyvote.org/volunteer. That's rank MI, Michigan postal abbreviation, rankmyvote.org/volunteer. Sign up to volunteer, sign up for email list. We're going to need a lot of people to do this because all those other things I've got on the ballot usually use paid volunteers. We're going to try to do it all on volunteer labor. We're going to need a lot of volunteers. We're going to need a lot of help. So rankmyvote.org/volunteer. And again, if you want to watch our statewide virtual meeting a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, go to rankmyvote.org/events. And until then, I'll see you at the Bank Street Farmers Market Saturday mornings about 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to take advantage of this opportunity to make a public comment this evening? All right, seeing no one, I just wanted to say I want to thank everybody for taking the time and making the effort to come here to this commission meeting to provide comments. Next is public hearing, and I'd now like to open a public hearing to receive comments on a resolution establishing a commercial redevelopment district at 5135 and 5147 Portage Road. And I'm assuming, Manager Isma, you have a staff report on this.
Yes, our Economic Development Supervisor, Paul Thuringer, is going to give us a brief presentation.
Welcome, Paul.
Vice Mayor Hess, Commissioners. We came to you in June of this last year and talked about this project at our Committee of the Whole meeting. And I have I'm just going to kind of run through the presentation and tee this up to give everybody a reminder of where we have been. This is the Portage Road corridor. It is an investment project, the former Brewster's site. As you can see, this is a view from Portage Road looking to the northeast. Apologies. Aha, there we go. There's a little map of the area. This is just south of I-94 on the east side of Portage Road. This is a $23 million investment project, or a $23 million investment. 20 million of it coming from private investment, about $1 million coming from this Commercial Redevelopment Act abatement that is in front of you this evening. We have received a state environmental grant from the Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy Department from the state of Michigan for about $1 million. And the brownfield plan is going to be about $1 million in savings over the life of the project as well. This is a 50% abatement of taxes over a period of 12 years. This closes the gap for the construction financing costs. As you know, inflation is high and our to borrow money is high. And also inflated construction costs that we've been seeing citywide. We hope that this helps to jumpstart the area that has really been hit hard by the I-94 construction that has been occurring over the last few years. Staff has determined eligibility with this statute. We feel it's a growth and public benefit. As we said, the corridor needs a catalyst and this development, we believe, can do that. It's creating 15 full-time jobs and hopefully an increase in economic development activity in the area. Little aside, one of the notes is that they're not even putting a restaurant into this hotel, and we feel like this is really going to help the restaurants that are down on that Portage corridor, which is a great plus. After this abatement runs out and the brownfield plan ends, there would be $200,000 to $250,000 in annual tax benefit to the community. I ran some numbers today, and currently that site is about $22,000 a year in tax benefit. So a tenfold increase after this project moves forward. Developer requested this back in May, and we put that on the consent agenda, which you approved to set this public hearing. Here we are at the public hearing a week early, and I just wanted to point that out. And there's a resolution to establish this district and also to set another public hearing where we will bring forward to you the application for the district. So it's twofold. It's establish the district and then approve the application of the developer. We plan on bringing that to you on September 3rd. I have Greg Dobson and Kurt Artema from the development team if there are any questions. And that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Paul. Commissioners, obviously this is not the only presentation we've had on this. We had a fairly extensive one recently, but any questions for this evening that you have on this particular step we're being asked to take this evening? All right, thank you, Paul. Seeing no questions, now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. Once again, speakers will have 3 minutes for their comments. Please come forward, state your name, whether you live in the city, and just a reminder that we are talking about this particular item here, so this is not general public comments. Make sure you speak into the microphone also.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Marty Mott. I'm the owner of the building and the property that we're discussing. And I would like you all to know that I've been approached several times for possible things that want to be built. We've turned down many different things because we spent, my husband and I, who's now deceased, we spent over 50 years on Portage Road, from owning the gas station across the street, owning the gas station further down the street, a hangar at the airport. So my concern is that however this was property to be developed, that it would help the people that already have businesses in the neighborhood. We turned down a gas station, party store, pizza, pot place, you name it. And now we're trying to go ahead with these builders, seeing that it's going to be a positive for the neighborhood. And I would just like you to understand that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Jeff Messer, city resident. First, let me express my support for this effort to give a 12-year, 50% property tax abatement for the construction of a Residence Inn hotel near the airport on the site of a former Bill Knopp's restaurant and a parcel that's been a parking lot for at least 20 years. Unfortunately, the developer has to come begging to the government for a discount on the property taxes. That's because our current property tax system penalizes development by taxing improvements upon land, such as building and other structures. In recognition of this, state government has programs, such as Public Act 255 of 1978, that gives tax exemption certificates to certain types of developments under certain conditions. Some projects don't qualify for these property tax discounts. Some property owners may not know about them and/or find the filing process and costs to be burdensome. Our current system also encourages owners to needlessly tear down buildings in order to reduce the property tax burden. An easier and more efficient way to encourage development, redevelopment, and discourage unproductive urban land uses is by switching to a land value tax system. Under a pure land value tax, only the land would be subject to property taxation, not buildings, personal property, or other improvements upon the land. Economists since Adam Smith and David Ricardo have advocated for this tax because it does not hurt economic activity and encourages development without subsidies. Land values tax efficiency has been observed in practice. Fred Foldberry noticed that land value tax discourages speculative land holding because the tax reflects changes in land value, encouraging landowners to develop or sell vacant and underused plots in high demand. Land value tax is arguably an eco-tax because it discourages the waste of prime locations, which are a finite resource. As mentioned earlier, the vacant lot at 5147 Portage Road has been a parking lot for over 20 years right next to the airport and Interstate 94. Shifting property taxes from improvements to land encourages development. Infill of underutilized urban space is one common practice to discourage urban sprawl. Nearly 20 Pennsylvania cities employ a two-rate or split-rate property tax, taxing the value of the land at a higher rate and the value of the buildings and improvements at a lower one. This can be seen as a compromise between pure land value and an ordinary property tax falling on real estate. Alternatively, two-rate taxation may be seen as a form that allows gradual transformation of the traditional real estate property tax into a pure land value tax. In 2023, Mayor Mike Duggan proposed a plan to tax land and buildings at different rates within the city of Detroit. The mayor bemoaned that under the status quo, blight is rewarded, building is punished, as speculators, absentee landlords, and faceless LLCs hiding behind shell corporations buy tens of thousands of Detroit properties, waiting for paydays when property values rise thanks to the
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to comment on this item for the public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll now close the public hearing. The recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Commissioners, is there a motion? Motion made by Commissioner Cooney, supported by Commissioner Decker. Discussion. Vice Mayor Hess.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the new Residence Inn will, the old Residence Inn on Cork Street? Is it on Cork Sprinkle?
It's on Cork, yeah.
It's on Cork Street. Is going to be renovated into housing units, which will help the housing here in Kalamazoo. So this new building will also, while it will bring commerce and activity to a parcel that hadn't been active for years, we're also freeing up space for more affordable housing in Kalamazoo.
Other discussion, commissioners? This item. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have to say for this redevelopment here, after going back and looking at, some of the planning commission meetings, just kind of seeing what happened, going back as far as, I think it was May of this year. This is a good development. When you think about taking an obsolete land that has been there, or a property that has been there that hasn't had anything on it in quite some time, and especially the fact that they're saying that they don't want to put a restaurant in there to really bring more jobs to that specific area. And you talk about, again, uplifting the people of Kalamazoo. What better way to do that is to bring in a hotel that's going to then be able to give more jobs and increase the wages of the individuals that live within that area. And it's nice to have something over there. And also, as you said, again, having that corridor when you're coming off that airplane and you're getting off and you go to your hotel and you're going down the street and you're going to start heading into our beautiful downtown when all the construction is done. And, bringing the economic vitality, that is what we need, is we need to have the economic vitality so we can raise the wages and the quality of living for the individuals that live here within the city. And I do think that I love that the old residence inn is being turned into housing, because we have to think about ways to, as Vice Mayor said, we have to think about ways to use the existing buildings that we have here and the existing property that we have here within the city of Kalamazoo, because we are landlocked. So we have to work with what we have. And I think this is a great development that can happen that's going to prosper for the city of Kalamazoo.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any other? Yeah, Commissioner Pradel.
This is maybe the second or third time that we've discussed this, but I'll share this again. In terms of that corridor, this is going to be a much needed injection of traffic and people. And I think this is exactly what that corridor needs right now after finishing that major interstate interchange there. I think this is, you see a number of the businesses that have closed their doors in the last couple of years. You can just imagine with having hundreds more people there every single evening, visiting the brewery, visiting the convenience stores, visiting the restaurants, Pizza King, all those places along that corridor. It's going to make a big difference. And I think this will be somewhat of a catalytic development where you'll start to see more come in there after this happens. And so I'm very much supportive of this. I think it's much needed right now. So thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Other comments? All right, seeing none. I just want to make a couple comments about this. Any new development like this, any effort takes a great deal of investment, even in advance of the actual approval, and it's accepting risk as well. So I just want to say thank you to our local developers that care about this area and want to make sure that we have quality developments, and I believe this certainly falls in that category. So thank you to those of you that are here. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Decker. Yes. Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next is the consent agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
The following items are presented for approval this evening. First is the approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Trace 3 for Cisco's network protection applications in the amount of $59,187, bringing the total purchase to $169,410.12. Next is the approval of an extension of the contract with Pipeline Management Company for the 2024 catch basin cleaning program in the amount of $128,625. Next is the approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Ferguson Waterworks for the purchase of ductile iron water main and appurtenances in the amount of $138,000. Next is the approval of a professional service agreement with Jones and Henry Engineers LTD for the water treatment plant number 11 sanitary sewer project design in the amount of $138,750. Next is the approval of a contract supplemental and change order with Jones and Henry Engineers LTD for the water treatment plant number 9 upgrades project in the amount of $148,750. Next is the approval of a contract with Carrier and Gavel for the MyDeal Cooperative Purchasing Program for traffic signals, controllers, components, and equipment in the amount of $500,000. Next is the adoption of a resolution setting a time to consider a commercial redevelopment exemption certificate application for 5135 and 5147 Portage Road. Next is the approval of a construction agreement with CD Arena LLC for the construction of water system infrastructure in the amount of $530,770. Next is the acceptance of a Michigan Department of Natural Resources grant for habitat restoration of Portage Creek at Millen Park in the amount of $75,000. Next is the acceptance of a holiday events grant from the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation to fund 2024 holiday events and programming in the amount of $80,000. Next is the approval of a recommendation to the Kalamazoo County Board of Commissioners that Kurt Artema be reappointed as one of the 3 city representatives on the Central County Transportation Authority. And next is the approval of the mayor's appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions and committees. First, the reappointment of Pamela Burpee to the Civil Rights Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2027. Next is the reappointment of Sandra Calderon Hazuo to the Civil Rights Board for a term expiring on March 31st, 2027. Next is the appointment of Eleanor Harris to the Historic Preservation Commission for a term expiring on March 31, 2025. Next is the reappointment of Laura Fredrickson to the Natural Features Protection Review Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2027. And finally, the appointment of Evangelia Murgia to the Natural Features Protection Review Board for a term expiring on March 31, 2027.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. So, Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 12 and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel,
Second.
supported by Vice Mayor Hess. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Pradel,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes, abstaining from number 8 due to work conflicts.
Vice Mayor Hess,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney,
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Commissioners. Items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we're at the regular agenda. City Manager Ritzma.
Item H1 is first reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 33, Streets and Other Public Grounds, Section 18-20, to update the requirements related to clearing snow and ice from sidewalks. And we have our city planner and Deputy Community Planning and Economic Development Director, Christina Anderson, who has a brief presentation of what this is about.
Welcome, Ms. Anderson.
I'm going to be honest, it's not that brief. I will go as quickly as I can. And the reason why it's not brief, I will say, is that we're combining 2 things here. This item was intended to be introduced to you at the Committee of the Whole meeting last month. We ran out of time because of an important item that required more conversation. So tonight's presentation is the presentation that we would have given at the Committee of the Whole plus first reading presentation, but I will talk fast. Okay, so a little history. In 2022, the City of Kalamazoo was awarded a training opportunity through the Bloomberg Center for Public Innovation. The intent of the training was to work through a process to be able to innovatively solve hard problems. It was a group that gathered staff across all departments to go through this process, to do the training, and our hard problem was to explore initiatives to create clear and passable sidewalks year-round. Now, the Bloomberg process, and I will not go through all the steps for you in the Bloomberg process, it was about a 10-month process that we went through both internally and with outreach and engagement with the community. What the Bloomberg process does is really try to get you to focus on what exactly is the problem. So if our goal is to explore initiatives to create clear and passable sidewalks, what does that actually mean? What is the foundation of that problem? So as it relates to sidewalks being impassable in the winter, we know that people must walk in the street or take alternate routes because sidewalks are often not cleared. or they choose not to walk at all because it is more difficult for them or impossible for them to move on foot through our neighborhoods. The ordinance that we have in place now that regulates sidewalk clearing as a responsibility of properties, owners, and occupants is a real challenge to enforce. And we know that not all property owners believe it to be a priority to clear the sidewalks adjacent to their properties. We also know, as relates to the problem, that these sidewalks are vital connectors for our community. You know, we can all think of the kids that walk to school, but think through those that this is their primary form of transportation, whether it's by choice or by necessity, and the streets that they take must be clear for them. And finally, there's a lack of clarity on how we as a city handle the clearing of sidewalks on our own property, and again, related to the ordinance. So through the Bloomberg process, we dove into all these individual problems, and we came up with a few insights after talking to the community. So I'm just going to read the highlighted portions to you because they're pretty interesting, and you know, I'll say a little harsh, but also very true. The city's vision for a connected city is incomplete without better tactics for getting the word out about our sidewalk clearing ordinances and gaining more residents' compliance with the responsibility of clearing the sidewalks adjacent to their properties. The apparent lack of action on the city, on the ordinance, and the complaints that we get gives the perception that the city is ineffective in their work. The results of this perception will also lead to the perception that drivers hold a higher value status in our community than non-drivers because those travel lanes are cleared regularly by the city. And the city is acting in a hypocritical manner when it chooses to not clear the snow from its own sidewalks in compliance with its ordinance. So we go through the problem in the Bloomberg process. We come up with some insights to help lead us through our work. We have conversations with the community. We met with neighborhood leaders. We met with residents. We met with business owners. And that led us to reframe the problem. So the focus of our problem was not just that we wanted to explore initiatives to create clear and passable sidewalks. Our actual problem, what we wanted to impact, was the ability to improve the length of sidewalks that are cleared every winter, that become passable, by creating effective tools that activate our connected city values. What the Bloomberg process teaches us is that everything should be on the table at the beginning, right? Put all your ideas out there. Be willing to test things, be willing to try things, even if they seem implausible at first. And so we did that through this process. The two ideas that rose to the top at the end of this process are the following. One, that the city acts to clear at least priority sidewalks. What does this require? It requires us to identify those priority sidewalks, and we need a funding mechanism and capacity to do the work. The second idea related to achieving an increased length of sidewalks cleared each winter are to make sure that we are keeping both us as property owners, city as property owners, and our broader property owners within the community accountable for clearing the sidewalk adjacent to their own properties according to the ordinance that's on the books right now. So what does this require? So we need to make sure that we are, as a city, doing a better job clearing our sidewalks adjacent to our properties. We need to do some work to clarify what's in the ordinance, because we heard from a number of folks that not only did it appear that we weren't enforcing our own rules, but the rules weren't 100% clear as to what was required and when. And we needed to figure out how we could better manage and enforce the ordinance that we have in front of us. At the same time, we also included a question about snow clearing in our community survey that we do every couple of years. And it's, it might be a little hard for you to read, but the questions related to, there were 3 of them. Do we believe it's sufficient that the primary responsibility for clearing sidewalks should be with property owners? That's question 1, of which 57% of those responding to the survey agreed with that statement. The second question was, agree or disagree. Property owners should continue to be responsible for keeping their sidewalks clear in the winter. 71% agreed with that statement, either strongly or somewhat. And finally, survey takers were asked to either agree or disagree with the statement, I support further cost and feasibility studies for the city of Kalamazoo to absorb snow removal responsibilities for the sidewalks. That was 64%. So we had our Bloomberg process where we went through a problem, tried to reframe the problem, trying to understand what we'd actually be capable of instituting at the city level. We had this information from the community through the community survey, which said, yes, it should still be property owner's responsibility, but we should maybe try some other things like the city taking over parts of that responsibility and give that a try. At the same time, we have our 311 data. And I know you had a copy of this presentation in front of you, so I won't read these to you all. I went back through the data to 2020 to present to review, thanks to Mimi, who got me all of the calls related to snow clearing, and reviewed, the calls that we got. It was a lot of repeat calls. It was every neighborhood where we getting calls from residents. This sidewalk is not clear. I fell. My neighbor fell. My kids can't get through this area. I have to walk in the street. Over and over again in those calls, trying to understand, how to impact this situation. Even in our relatively mild winter that we had this past year in 2024, I was surprised on the number of calls that we got from residents noting that sidewalks were not completely clear. And the challenge is that if half of a block clears their sidewalk, that's lovely, but the sidewalk as a pathway is still impassable if some number of property owners are not clearing their sidewalk in those locations. So it really is kind of an all or nothing activity. The Bloomberg work, the community survey, reviewing 311 data, kind of all led us to a variety of changes, of which are the heart of what is in front of you tonight for a first reading. So, going back to idea number 2 that came out of our Bloomberg work, we need to keep property owners accountable for clearing adjacent sidewalks. And we noted that that would require some ordinance updates, some better enforcement of the ordinance, and some additional education and outreach to make sure that we get there. That is why we are coming to you tonight with edits to Chapter 33, Streets and Other Public Grounds, to make some of the changes based on what we heard through the Bloomberg process and through the challenges that we have had as city staff trying to enforce and implement the ordinance. So the Chapter 33, the high level, the changes that are being proposed are more, and I'll get into these in more detail in a moment, but more clarity on what it means to clear the sidewalk. Is that just the one shovel path down the middle? Is it the entire length of the sidewalk down to the concrete? We wanted to make sure that when we talk about passable sidewalks, it's not just the snow that is a challenge, it is also ice. And so to make sure that we are asking very clearly for both snow and ice to be removed from our sidewalks. And through these edits, we reviewed the 2 enforcement mechanisms that we have in Chapter 33 and are proposing the removal of the one that we have employed the most because it is not effective to achieve the goals of the ordinance, which is to have clear sidewalks throughout the winter. So let's talk about current enforcement. Right now, the ordinance says, after 48 hours, you as a property owner or an occupant are required to clear the sidewalks directly adjacent to your property. If you do not, there's 2 mechanisms that the city can employ to enforce the ordinance. The first is it's a municipal civil infraction. So that's a $50 fine ticket, which increases with each additional offense. and there could be possible court proceedings. And several of these cases we know from public services staff that works to enforce these end up in court. The second enforcement mechanism that exists in Chapter 33 today is that we can cause the sidewalks to be cleared and then provide that or turn that cost around to the property owner for that clearing activity. We have not in the past been set up to really use enforcement mechanism 2, because that requires capacity and plowing and some additional funding, which in the past we have not had. So we have always used the municipal infraction route. So what does that mean? So the snow accumulates and we wait 48 hours because that's what the ordinance says. 48 hours after the snow accumulates, at that point, sidewalks need to be clear. We receive a complaint, we do an inspection, and we have tried this 2 ways. We have mailed letters after going out to an inspection to see that there is snow in the sidewalk, mailed the property owner a letter asking them to clear the sidewalk by a certain date. We go back out for that inspection. If it's still not cleared, there's a ticket written and court action if necessary. Obviously, that takes quite some time. We are talking about snow, right, which can come and go, or instead of going away all the way, becomes something almost worse, which is ice or, very uneven surfaces. So we've also done, which is our current practice, is we don't mail the warning letter. If we receive a complaint, we do an inspection, and we find that your sidewalk is not cleared, then you receive a ticket. And again, there's possibility of going to court. The challenge with this path is that it takes a long time. It's a lot of time for staff. Any actions that go to court, we cannot do any additional enforcement on that property while they are going through the court system. What's happening here is staff is working very hard to follow the rules of the ordinance, but the sidewalks are not getting clear. This is not making the sidewalks clear of snow. All we're doing is we're taking a punitive step, which enforcement also often includes a punitive piece, but we're not meeting the end goal of the ordinance, which is to have clear sidewalks. So what we are proposing with these ordinance changes is to focus on the second existing pathway, which is that the city causes the sidewalks to be cleared and the cost of that charge is passed on to the property owner. So in this case, we do the same, we do that first step, right? The snow falls, we have 48 hours, we get a complaint, we do an inspection, same thing. In this case, though, if we see that the sidewalk has not been cleared, we cause it to be cleared. We have it set up where we can have someone go out and clear that snow. And then the cost, again, goes back to the property owner in the same way that the fine would go to the property owner. So in summary, the major changes to the ordinance. Currently, it says both property owner and occupant are responsible. We've removed or occupant. It is the property owner that is responsible. If you are a property owner that rents, you are certainly allowed to designate that responsibility to your tenants, but you need to spell it out in the tenant agreement, because at the end of the day, it's the property owner's responsibility to make sure that that happens. We do a better definition of what clearing means. So we do talk, when you clear the sidewalk, we want down to the pavement. We want the width of the sidewalk that exists adjacent to your property, and we're talking about both snow and ice. So there's the initial clearing as it relates to a snow event, but also some maintenance that may need to happen in between snow events. And the third major change is the removal of one of the two enforcement mechanisms, and that is the one with the civil infraction, with the ticket, because staff does not believe that it is achieving the goals of the ordinance. This is one tool that we have, and any changes to that tool require this body to review and consider them. But I want to let you know briefly before I open it to questions, wanted to talk about some of the other actions that we're proposing to help achieve clearer sidewalks in the winter. Because again, just like many of our other issues that we deal with, there's not one magic solution that's going to take care of everything. So we have a lot of other initiatives going on this winter. So first, I mentioned earlier that the city has not always been able to clear its sidewalks within the 48 hours. And we recognize that that has been something that we challenge we have not always risen to. We are committed to doing that. We have reviewed our process. We've reviewed our capacities. We have reviewed how we operate, whether it's city properties, Kalamazoo Department of Public Services, the properties that the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority owns, to review our procedures to make sure that those will get cleared within the time that is allowed by the ordinance. That accounts for about 19 miles of sidewalk right now, between sidewalks that we have agreements with, like with Michigan Department of Transportation, Western Michigan University, other places. The city has an agreement in addition to the property, adjacent to the properties it owns, to clear sidewalks. So we currently have about 19 miles under our authority, and that is what's noted in red on this map. This winter, through the Foundation for Excellence, we have funding to add another 14 miles of sidewalk, which the city will do a pilot program to clear this year. This, again, ties to Idea 1 from our Bloomberg work, which is, what if the city cleared priority sidewalks? What would that look like? And so through, again, a special budget request, we will be seeking services to cover these 14 miles, additional miles. Those that the firm or firms hired for that will also be our firms that help us enforce the sidewalk ordinance and the clearing of the sidewalks if they are not cleared within 48 hours. The priority routes, and again, I'm happy to share a copy of this map in a bigger format for you. I was trying to get the whole thing on the screen, and I know you have it in front of you too, but it's a little bit small. The purple lines are the areas that we are proposing to add to our clearing responsibility this winter. And so in looking at this, we really tried to pick areas based on what we heard from our Bloomberg process from the communities. So where are their bus routes? Where are the highest, some of our highest pedestrian routes that we have? And we have a lot, so we did have to make some decisions. Where could we add to clear the sidewalk that would make a longer network, right? So maybe we do on this side and this side already. What if we chose sidewalk in between to extend that passable path? And that is what is represented as those 14 miles of purple on the map you have. Based on how this goes, we are prepared with another round of additional sidewalks that we could seek funding for in the future to add to this list, depending on, again, we'll monitor this process and seek feedback on how it goes. Outreach and engagement. One of the things we heard during the Bloomberg process was, I don't know that everybody knows that this is their responsibility to clear the sidewalks adjacent to their property. And what does that look like? So this fall, we will be doing, and we will continue to do, not just this fall, but beyond, a detailed campaign to get the word out. So things like our new newsletter that goes into everybody's household, of course, View from the Curb. We already have a website set up, and so we'll have lots of information on there. We'll do some targeted outreach to landlords and building managers through our rental registration program. We have already started to reach out to neighborhood associations, and will continue to do so as a way to spread information. We'll use community bulletin boards and community partners to help spread the word about the importance of sidewalks year-round in the city of Kalamazoo. Now, we know that there are instances of folks that understand it's their responsibility, but aren't physically able to clear their sidewalks. And so staff has set out to explore what programs already exist to provide that support service. And so we are in the process of, I am working with Marvila Vincent and her staff, as well as my staff, to reaching out to neighborhood associations, community partners, senior support services, faith-based organizations, and we have been in touch with 211 to understand what exists now. Are they hearing that people need help? Do they get common requests? What do they do? And so we're in the process of compiling all of that information so we can be able to provide, if at least a start of a clearinghouse for where the information exists. If there is a gap in that information and those services don't exist, then we will work to support these organizations in figuring out how those services can exist. So, next steps. Obviously, first reading tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the changes to Chapter 33. Outside of that, we are going to continue to have conversations with the community, especially large groups that we think will help us share this information throughout the community. We will be coordinating internally our pilot snow clearing project, which we're pretty excited about, and getting that underway. We will ensure that our properties are properly maintained this winter, work with community partners, and importantly, we need to start noticing now. That's why we're talking about snow in the summer, right? Because we want to make sure that we have plenty of time before the first snowfall to get out to the community and share all of this information. There are both noticing requirements in the ordinance itself, those existed before, but we want to make sure that we do even more than putting a notice in the Gazette, which is what's required. And of course, internal, as we update our processes, make sure that our staff are trained with our tools and working together across public services and community planning and economic development to field complaints and help manage how they get processed moving forward, working with 311, making sure scripts are updated and so forth. And so with that, I'm happy to answer questions, and hopefully I was brief enough and clear enough for you.
Thank you very much, Planner Anderson. Very helpful. I appreciate that. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you for the presentation on this. It's really interesting. I was just thinking back to this, and I think maybe one of my first meetings with administration was with COO Lamb at Walnut and Park, talking about this very issue. I was just thinking about that. I don't know how I forgot about that, but it's been a pervasive long-term issue that our communities grappled with, right? I mean, you balance the fact that we know that we need to make a more interconnected community, and this is a major inhibitor to that because a huge portion of our year has snow on it, and you think of it as kind of like a body with arteries, and if I just went and snipped one of my arteries that leads to my heart, well, there ends the body, right, of the whole. And so it's the same with our sidewalks, and you might have 40 people who live on a block, but if 2 or 3 people decide to participate, it's not an interconnected community. But in the same respect, like you say, you're grappling with the challenge of what do you do for people who can't afford snow removal, maybe have health conditions that prevent it. We don't want it to be something that's disproportionately impacting people who have circumstances that make it that they can't, more so than an affluent household or somebody who's more physically able-bodied to do it. Couple questions for you though as well. So like what about scenarios where you have, and I don't want to get into too minutia, but this is Michigan, so these scenarios are probably going to happen. So you have a scenario where there's long-term snowfall beyond 48 hours.
Sure.
Right? So what do you do in those situations? Is there a way to clarify that says if there's long-term snow, when the clock starts?
Sure. So we did a lot of debating about how carefully we define that trigger in the ordinance. As we do today, we'll continue to do, if we have a series of snow events that are coming, one after the other, we will be true to that 48 hours when we really get
Once
the pause.
Once it ceases.
Yes.
Gotcha. Yes. Okay.
We do hope that people are clearing in between, but in terms of what we are going to enforce, we'll be true to the 48 hours after that series of days happens. Mm-hmm. We understand even with, our streets, where we're plowing our streets, when there's multiple days of snow, right, we keep going, and sometimes you need it to stop in order to catch up. And so we understand the functionality of that.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. And another scenario I was just thinking about is that there are many circumstances in Michigan where you would potentially have heavy snowfall where it may not be safe for people to be outdoors. So a couple of scenarios I was thinking about is the polar vortex, right? Mm-hmm. If you have minus 40 wind chill levels, people should not be outside,
Right.
Or let's, another example is there's a major ice storm, like where we have limbs all over the place, where there's power lines down, and it's not safe for people to be outside.
Yep.
What about those kind of scenarios?
Sure. In the same way, I think there's a level of understanding that has to happen, right? Our inspectors are also not going out in that weather to do their rounds, to inspect based on complaints. So just like the multiple days of snow, I think there's a level of understanding on how we work to enforce that ordinance. It's no different than right now, if there's a major storm and there's lots of branches down, the curb lawn enforcement, right, for branches that are, or other debris that falls within the curb lawn, doesn't happen the next day, right? There's a level of understanding for what happens in nature and in around us. A bit of common sense enforcement for, or application of the ordinance.
Third scenario I was just thinking of as well is that on major roadways, and maybe this fits into kind of the calculus of which routes get plowed, but I know there are a number of areas where there's residential areas where it's on a major road. I'm thinking like Westnedge or Cork. And you have more plow traffic that's going through, so you can envision somebody who just, did their citizenly duty to plow or to shovel their walkway, and then the plow goes with all this heavy snow and dumps it right on that route. So is that kind of fitting into the thought process of which areas would maybe be prioritized?
And we know that happens, right? We have places where the sidewalk is at the back of curb, or not, the curb lawn is not very, very deep. The city has spent time working with plow drivers to be as careful as possible, but those things are just going to happen, and it's not a completely perfect system. So then, what do you do, right? And so we are constantly asking ourselves, well, when this happens, what does it mean, right? Are there areas that that should be considered part of our priority areas because that is a common occurrence? So Westnedge and Park will be one of our priority areas this year that we try plowing.
Either way, these are just kind of minutiae questions, but definitely something I wanted to make sure that people know that we're thinking about. I applaud you and the team for your work doing this, because again, this is one of these like long intergenerational issues that have just kind of plagued our community. And not everyone's going to be happy, and not every block is going to be plowed, but just the fact that you're talking about adding additional 14 miles, in my view, is a huge win in the win column for our community and heading in the right direction. And if there's any motivation for you and the team to go back as you're working on this and you're hearing naysayers and people who are beating you up about this, I had a chance to talk to the Dean of Students at Western. The Dean of Students is the person who calls the families when a student is killed, on some campus or near campus type thing. And she was thanking me, but really thanking all of you for the work that you're doing, because she said that the work that you all are doing on West Michigan Avenue is going to undoubtedly save lives and prevent those calls from her having to make to families to tell them that their child was either killed or injured on those major roadways. There's no doubt in my mind that this kind of work is going to further continue that impact and hopefully save lives from people. And so just keep up the great work, and thank you for making this a priority.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Yeah, Commissioner Wilson.
Thanks, Mayor. Thank you, Planner Anderson. I was happy to see that there's such a robust marketing campaign planned for getting that outreach and education out there. As a fairly recent, first-time homeowner myself, I can admit that there's a lot of ordinances and, rules, that I'm still getting comfortable with myself. And before I think we can, start to be more strict on that enforcement, that outreach and education is required to raise that awareness. A couple of questions. Is there a minimum height of snow that kind of triggers that expectation of snow removal, whether that's a 1/4 inch or, like you mentioned, do we need to be able to clearly see, pavement on the sidewalk? And then secondly, it sounds like we're moving away from the letter system that we had. I was wondering if that included any notification letters or warning letters for first-time infractions, I would say.
Sure. So we reviewed a lot of ordinances from around the country, north half of the country, that deal with snow. And some set minimum amounts, others did not. We chose not to. We don't now. We just say within 48 hours we'd like it clear down to the pavement. As it relates to, is there kind of a warning now for first-time offenders? The answer is no, there is not. Whether we are doing it under our old system where we sent the letter and then waited, or we do it under how we're trying to enforce it now, which is, you know, we write a ticket if we inspect it and find that it's not there. There's not a warning for first time.
Thanks.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Planner Anderson. I'm just going to kind of piggyback off of what Commissioner Wilson said when we say that there's no warning when we go out there and clear it for them and charge them, right?
Say that again?
So like if we pass a new ordinance, we're just going to go out there and clean it, and then they're just going to get a bill.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, the warning would be the notice that we embark on now to spread the word throughout the community. It's similar to how we enforce our parking rules, right? We have signs on the edge of the community that say ordinance says no parking between 2 and 6 unless otherwise signed. The curb lawn, I referenced that earlier. Right now, if you have debris and other things within the curb lawn and a complaint is received and an inspection done to find it, we cause that whatever that material is to be cleared, and that charge is passed on to the property owner. So it follows similar processes that we do now for some other infraction items in the public way.
Okay, thank you for that. I was just thinking that, as Commissioner Wilson said, first-time home buyer. I mean, I got in trouble. I put a Christmas tree out there on the yard, and I didn't know that ordinance had changed. So I do appreciate the thorough and being proactive and giving out the information to the residents before. You said that you got some great information from Mimi about how many calls were particular to this clearing of the snow. Has 3-1 received, or if you know that from 2020 to about 2023?
Sure. I knew you were going to ask that question, and I meant to go back and look. I think it's safe to say dozens each year. And some of them are repeat callers, you know, who are seeing the same sidewalks over again. I will say for the most part, they are spread across all neighborhoods and both business and residences. And if you look over the years, often there are repeat offenders or, you know, properties that are called on, you know, year after year after year, at least in the 5 years that I reviewed.
Okay. 4
years I reviewed.
So I'm grateful and I'm thankful that, you know, we have acknowledged as a city that we weren't doing our part when it comes to enforcing these ordinances. You know, we recognize that, and we're trying to put some changes in place. With the new 14 miles of sidewalk going in, us now planning on, you know, taking control of removing the snow from, you said it was Westnedge, starting with the Westnedge and Park area. How do you feel your team is with capacity when it comes to doing that?
Sure. So, you know, I should defer to Director Baker because it is his team. However, for this project, I can say that the special request that we received through the Foundation for Excellence to do this pilot snow clearing project will give us the capacity to hire an outside contractor to do this work. If we wanted to do this in-house, and this is something that we grappled with, what does a pilot look like? How do we start to do this? We would need equipment. We would need, you know, full-time employees who would have benefits, and they would need training. And so it's a little more complicated to ramp up that kind of system, especially for just testing it out to see how it works and what areas we should be doing. So which is why we chose to go the route of an outside contractor. We've had a lot of conversations internally amongst departments that manage city properties to make sure that we are all on the same page, whether it's, again, Parks and Rec, our Police and Fire Service. CPED owns a variety of properties through the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority to make sure that we are all aware of what's going on and can figure out our own, you know, review our own capacities to get the work done.
Thank you. And so this is our first reading of the ordinance, and I know you said that we're going to be contracting with some outside businesses and things like that. Do you think like maybe, you know, when you bring this back to the commission, you might have an estimate of maybe what those fees would be? I mean, because right now, we know we had a fee of where it was $50, and then it would increase going up there. I mean, are we looking at, you know, some of these homeowners, if they don't pay attention to what's really happening, is it going to be $20, $100, you know, just kind of
Sure.
whatever kind of funds you could find?
We will not have the contract. We're just preparing to go out for an RFP. So we would not have that, especially if this comes back next week, as I think it is currently slated. What I can do is do some calls to figure out, you know, about what, you know, the cost per lineal foot of sidewalk, right? To get an idea that way. The cost, the cost depends on the action, right? So when curb lawn infractions are cleaned up, you know, a whole tree or, you know, lots of, you know, you might need a huge truck, you might need the back of a pickup truck to manage the item, and so the charges are accordingly. But we can talk about what might be an average amount, right, for an area of sidewalk.
Okay,
If
so
that, you know, helps kind of get an understanding. So right now, it's $50 for the first offense, and then it increases over time.
Okay.
And so just to kind of give a sense of ranges. And I guess in that sense, you know, the property owner is paying in the punitive way, but we aren't necessarily getting the result. You know, right, that's still not necessarily being cleared, but the property owner is paying the fine or the punishment associated with it.
Okay. And are we going to put out we are going to put out RFPs?
We are in the
for
process of putting that out. Yeah, we want to make sure that we do it soon, so we can have the opportunity to get a number of rates, options. Yeah, so that is expected to go out shortly.
Awesome. And, you know, I saw in here that, you know, we're definitely going to look at organizations that we currently work with, neighborhood associations, community partners, senior support services, faith-based organizations, the 211 Griffin Place. I want to add on there any school or anything where our youth might need to get volunteer hours, something like that. So that was just one thing I was thinking, to bring the youth in. And you think about that, older individual might be out there, the youth may, chit-chat with them for a while. That also brings comfort and companionship for a little bit.
We did hear anecdotally from many of the people that we talked to, you know, I do my block, right? I have time in the morning, so I do the whole thing, or I do my neighbor's property because I know they cannot physically. So we did hear, without not talking about a formal program, but we did hear a number of people say, you know, when it snows, we kind of all go out together, which is heartwarming.
Vice Mayor Hess.
I was just going to say that, Christina. Absolutely, Commissioner Decker, I agree with everything that you brought forward, but this is a change. This is a change, and I would ask that our community not fear this change, that this is a change for the better, because we're focusing on a pedestrian network, not just in the summertime, not just when the bike lanes are good, but pedestrian and non-motorized network. And so thank you for bringing this forward to us. And I would just call it an opportunity to increase community, just like what you've said. You know, it's an opportunity. Back in the 60s, when it snowed, everyone came out with their snow shovels, and my brother went around the neighborhood, and people just gave. Is this an opportunity to do that, or is this also an opportunity to have young people be entrepreneurs and start with an entrepreneurial business? Like, go to the neighbors and say, "Do you want me to clear your sidewalk for the winter time?" But it's just an opportunity. I'd rather not see it seen as a punishment by the city, because it's everyone buying into our community, which we all have charge of. So thank you for doing this, and I appreciate your work.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Planner Anderson, just one more quick question. So we're going to focus on West Edge and Park, right?
So there are a number of streets that are going to be included. I know, and I will provide you all with a larger copy of the map. Director Baker made it. It's lovely. I'm sorry that I shrunk it down. What I call out West Edge and Park because that is the longest stretch that we're doing. If you are able to see on the map, there are parts of West Main, Douglas, and a variety of other locations that will be added as part of those 14 miles. Again, we looked at what were some of the corridors that we know have high pedestrian traffic, have bus service, maybe have a school off of them. You know, what are those criteria? And then the second thing we thought through was if we added a couple of blocks or some distance, would we be connecting two areas that are shoveled through other means, whether it's us or an institution, such that we are lengthening the network? So those were some of the lenses through which we viewed the work.
So where would you? So if you're on West Edge, are you going to start at West Edge? So you're going to start from Kilgore, maybe, and go all the way down, or
Sure.
Court Street?
So,
when does it begin, and when would it end?
It is West Edge and Park through North Side, downtown, Vine, and South Side. It's right now scheduled to go to just about where West Edge and Park merge. So from the very north end of the city limits all the way down. So it would touch all of those neighborhoods.
You set, Commissioner Decker? For now? You're good for now. Commissioner Prado?
Just that was something I wanted to make sure to lift up as well. When I was knocking the doors in neighborhoods in November last year, and really 4 years before that as well, Oakwood neighborhood, on their bus routes, you really have to go out to the major roads to catch a bus. And that route to get to those major roads is very hilly. And I know that's been something that Cheryl Lord has really advocated on behalf of the neighborhood. And there were quite a few neighbors that also mentioned that as well, that now that we have those really great new sidewalks that have been installed along that as well, I wonder if that's something to give consideration to as well as you're finalizing routes and
Cheryl
maps.
and her residents participated in the Bloomberg process because, again, we had heard repeatedly from Cheryl and from her residents that this was a challenge. It was not happening and was preventing residents from being able to get out to the major roads to the north and east of the neighborhood in order to get the bus. So it was one of the neighborhoods that we worked with during this process to help do some of that background and understanding of the key issues.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
Any other questions, commissioners? All right, lots of good questions. Thank you so much for ably handling all the questions that the commission had. Seeing no more from the commission right now, now's an opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers to comment on this item. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment?
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident. I would like to, well, I appreciate among the changes proposed that I didn't catch before is that the responsibility for the occupant of rental properties to maintain their sidewalks is being taken out, particularly in the Vine neighborhood. The property management companies that oversee rental properties are some of the worst offenders. So it will be good to see some of those rental properties, the management companies take responsibility. Also, sometimes I forget what I want to say. So let me clarify that this will, that there will not be city staff actively looking for sidewalks that are in violation. My understanding of the presentation is that someone will only get this enforced against them if there's a complaint received.